All right, backstage at CrimeCon, this is the man behind CrimeCon, Kevin Balfe. How'd you come up with this idea?
I should blur my face or something. I don't.
Yeah, we won't show it. You came up with this in 2017?
2017, yeah. And actually the story goes, so my brother and I had started a new company, startup company, and we were looking for some talent to bring in. It was a digital media company. And Nancy Grace was cycling off of Headline News at the time. And so we were taking a look at Nancy, and I sort of got put in charge of like due diligence of the true crime business overall. What is the audience like? And if we built something for Nancy, what would we build? Kind of going through that process. And I figured, well, whatever we build, we should be this title sponsor at like the convention for true crime. And so I started looking for it and Googling it, like, where's this convention? I can't find it. So, we ended up working with Nancy. You just saw her, she's lovely.
Yeah.
But the CrimeCon business sort of came out of that organically, where we just sort of saw this opportunity. We knew her audience was so passionate and engaged. We figured there was all the similar people out there. And it was kind of one of those, we hope if we build it, people will come. And year one was like, every night praying, fingers crossed, somebody show up to this thing, and they did. And year two got a little bit bigger, and year three got a little bit bigger, and then COVID, and now here we are.
And I will say, I'd heard a little bit about CrimeCon because I work in news, but I didn't know what it was like until this year, and this is kind of a scaled down version from what I understand.
Yeah, very civilized this year.
But very fascinating. There's experts here from all walks of crime life.
Yeah.
There's victims of crime. There's family members of crime. I mean, Natalie Holloway's mother spoke this morning. Why do you think people are so interested in this stuff?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I think my real answer is, like, some people get paid a lot of money to figure that out, sociologists and psychologists, and they're way smarter than I am. My view is that true crime generally is just a story well told. In most of these cases, there's a protagonist, an antagonist, a beginning, a middle, hopefully an end, a climactic event, sometimes a mystery, right? It's got all the elements of stories. And I think when you look at the properties like Dateline that do it so well, that's, at least from my view of true crime, that's what, is attractive. When you think about women in true crime, which has been a whole other topic and people have deep dived into, I think there are some valid things that people have raised around women wanting to be educated around a lot of these topics, because feeling like knowledge is power, and feeling like, I was on a date with someone and she said to me, I'll never forget this, tell her what I did for a living, CrimeCon. She said, it's interesting you said that. You show up to a first date and you're wondering if I look like my photo. I show up to a first date wondering if you're gonna kill me. I was like, I never thought about it like that, right? And these different perspectives. So I think the learning and education and engaging and that sort of like, how can people be so evil? Chris Watts is a case that people constantly are talking to me about, right? Because as a woman, you would say, my husband seems normal. We have this family, and we have a rocky marriage, but who doesn't? We have problems, who doesn't? And then the snap happens, right? And like Dr. Phil talked about it in Psychology of Evil, are you born with that? Or is that something we all have in the right circumstances can trigger it? So long-winded way of saying, I think there's a lot there, but good stories, and then I think that feeling of empowerment from the learning of it, to me, are why people are attracted to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Dr. Phil speech. There's the deep topics about evil, are you born with it? But there's also the educational topics, which how to protect yourself against a crime or something. And then there's also fun events, more lighthearted. It's not all heavy,
right,
dark, deep stuff.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. I mean, as the programmer, I try to look at the weekend really cohesively and say, if somebody goes to all 3 days and every hour there's 3, 4, 5 things to pick from, I like that they can choose their own adventure through it. If you're someone that likes cold cases, you should be able to sort of make a track through that. If you like forensics and the science side of it, you should be able to track through that. If you like victims' rights and some of the more niche issues we go into with, strengthening of stalking laws, domestic violence, strengthening of false confessions laws, which Laura Ryder talked about today, that you can kind of take that track. And I think it's up to me to give the buffet, and then it's up to people to figure out what they want to eat from it. But some of that, as you said, like we had Crime Sonics here today talking about how they score true crime podcasts, documentaries, TV shows, and he's up there with a full like music set playing, and you feel like if I say this just flat with no music, here's what it sounds like. Now let me score it with the suspense, right? And people are like, oh yeah, that feels that feels a lot different.
Yeah, which is a whole other fascinating thing that you can do. And then fairly new is the CrimeHQ website that of course East Idaho News is helping out with the DeOrr Kunz case, talking about that for the next few Thursdays. You can log on and be involved in that. That's more of a way for people to keep in touch throughout the year, not just for this 3-day event once every year.
Yeah, and I got to say, Nate didn't tell me to say this, but East Idaho News and Nate have been amazing. The support has been incredible. This is a brand new thing for us. And the idea was really, we did an event called CrowdSolve in person, which was a 3-day single case focus. Worked with the law enforcement jurisdiction that had the case, brought out the officers, brought out the family, and then we brought our experts who I've been fortunate enough to have these relationships with through CrimeCon to the weekend, and sat there in front of 300-400 people and said, we're going to take a deep dive into this case, which is a 12-year-old cold case, unlike anything that's ever been done before by all the detectives who've had it. We're going to surround you with all the people who can answer all of your questions. Let's see what fresh eyes can do, right? These are nurses and teachers, and these are not professionals. And that experience was so incredible that we thought, how do we bring that online? And that's where what you're doing with CrimeHQ in terms of the featured case, the cold case club, really comes out of. A little bit of a more boiled down way to do it, but for dipping our toe in, the things that you're bringing and the people you're bringing, and then the audience that we're hopefully bringing, and then the experts that we're all going to bring in to take a look at this. Like I always say to the families, you have nothing to lose, everything to gain. Who knows? The right person, the right time, the right perspective, the right thing that they know, you never know. And so I'm very proud of that, and excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, and if you're interested in CrimeCon, I've never been before, it's in Las Vegas next year, so a little closer to Idaho Falls than some of the other locations, and fairly affordable flights. So,
Kevin, that.
Good.
Well, you could actually, it could be free. You could win all of your, that's what I always say to my friends when we go to Vegas. This trip, they're going to pay us.
Right, yeah. Save up your money now, and then you can win it all back. Yeah. All right, anything you want to add, Kevin?
No, just thank you again. Appreciate everything you've done, and come to Vegas. We'd love to see you. Next year, I think, is going to be an incredible year for CrimeCon. Every speaker and show and documentary and podcast that was, a little nervous with COVID this year, they've already all told me, save my room. Next year, I'll be there.
Could be the biggest one ever.
Absolutely.
All right.